Good afternoon, students. Yes, very good afternoon, everyone. We
Good
were
afternoon,
discussing
students.
in the last session on the sweet boxes. Hope it all delivered.
Yes, very good
But as
afternoon,
we
everyone.
discussed, it will
Good
not be
afternoon,
delivered.
good
We were
afternoon,
discussing
students.
in the
Some
last
issues,
session on the
right?
sweet boxes. Hope
So
it
today
all
we will
delivered.
discuss
Yes,
on,
very good
but as we
afternoon, everyone.
discussed, it
Good
will not be
afternoon, good
delivered.
afternoon, students.
In the
Last
last
session
sessions
on e-way
on the
bills,
sweet
right?
boxes.
Hope
So
it all
today we will
delivered.
discuss
Yes,
on,
very good
but as we
afternoon, everyone.
discussed, it will
Good
not be
afternoon, good
delivered.
afternoon,
There are
students.
some
In the
questions
last
discussed
session,
in
on the
case
sweet
of
boxes, hope
this.
it all
Today we will
delivered.
discuss
Yes,
on,
very good
but
afternoon,
only
everyone.
one
E-way bill is generated when if supplier and third person both are unregistered, then the recipient will raise by itself, provided he should be registered. So in case of a bill to ship to transaction, as we had discussed, that there are two supplies happening from the party. Let's take an example. A is selling goods to B, and
Good
B
afternoon,
says,
good afternoon.
you don't send the goods to me, you send it goods to from C. The party. So A is
take an
selling the goods
example.
directly to C. Correct. So in this, where is the movement happening? It is happening from A to C. Correct, Asta? The goods are moving from A to C. So e-way bill has to be raised from A to C. Correct. Now, if the supplier and third person both are unregistered, here third person refers to B because on the instructions of B, the goods are sent to C. So the third person referred here is B. So if the supplier and third person both are unregistered, because generally whose responsibility it is either the supplier or the buyer. Now in this case, if both are unregistered, then the person who is actually receiving the goods, if he is registered, right? The seller is not registered, the buyer is not registered, the third person who is getting the goods, he is registered, then he will be required to raise a e-way bill, is what the scenario is saying. Under what circumstances will multiple EVA bills be raised? So, if there's any kind of uh, repair or breakdown of the vehicle, then that EVA bill will be raised. Or even in that case, same EVA bill will continue. But what will happen is you will update the vehicle number. So, when there is single movement for one movement, one EVA will be raised. So, if the movement is completed and a new movement start. Suppose I have bought some goods from Tamil Nadu to Bangalore. Now, while the goods are reached, I am wanting it to get the goods reached at my kind of a factory or the project office. So there, I will raise a different e-way bill because the original e-way bill was raised from Tamil Nadu to Bangalore. Now I want to deliver this e-way the goods from Bangalore to the site office. So in that case, there will be an extension. One. Yes. So by Sir, in transfer of goods from one conveyance to another, then even if initially not provided information, no, it can't be that you will not provide information. When the goods have started moving, you have to provide the information. So initially you will provide the transporter's details, and after that, as we had seen, if the supplier has the control within, he himself will raise it, or the other person, that is a transporter, who has been given the right to mention the details. Suppose you have mentioned the details in part B, then you can add the new vehicle details. If the transporter has added the details, then he will able to edit it and put the new transportation number, new conveyance number. Okay. Part A cannot update and part B we can update. Correct. You're right. In the which chapter, Nidhi, do you want to explain the quiz on e-way bill? Okay, sure. I will take up at the end of the session then. Initially not provided information by transporter as like consignor initially provided, then also transporter can update if consignor, so if the conveyance changes. Initially not provided information by transporter, like consignor initially provided. Yes. So if the consignor has provided the details, then the transporter cannot update it. Asta, if you authorize the transporter, how will you authorize the transporter? By not entering the details. Or you have an option to authorize. Unless you do that, if you yourself, the consignor has entered the details, then the editing option also will be with the consignor only. Okay. Part B details is not mandatory if distance is up to 50 kilometers. Correct. So we're talking about the normal case where it is beyond 50 kilometers. But to when? Only when you are transport, not in all cases. So if you're transporting, say, up to 10 kilometers from your supplier to customer, since it is 50 kilometers, will you raise a e-way bill or no? From point A to point B, the distance is 10 kilometers. Will you raise e-way bill or no? Oh, you're saying no. I will take you to the slide where we had discussed on the limit of 50 kilometers. Others, what do you feel? Yeah, I need answers so that what have you read in the last class? Over-dimensional cargo, no. ट्रांसपोर्ट में गुड्स बाय ट्रेन भी जाता है सर, तो उसमें भी ई वे बिल रेस होता है क्या? हाँ, जब हम ट्रांसपोर्टेशन करते हैं ऑफ गुड्स ट्रेन से भी अगर जब हम करते हैं तब भी ई वे बिल लगेगा. Extension by transporter cannot be done in case of railways, air, vessel. This extension by transporter can be only in case of road. Correct. Now, but my question to everyone was, if the distance from I am the seller and the buyer is here and buyer's location is just 10 kilometers, should I raise e-way bill or no? There is a movement which is happening, but it is less than 50 kilometers. And there is some criteria of this 50 kilometers. So based on that, do you think should I raise the e-way bill or should I not? Not required if intrastate. Okay, where do you get this exemption from, Asta? Supplier and buyer both are registered, then e-way bill not required? Yes, not required. Yes, but filling part B is not mandatory. Mhm. I will show you. What we are saying is part B of the e-way bill may not be required to be furnished when the goods are transported for a distance of 50 kilometers. You have read this, but you should read this completely. What it says is part B is not required for a distance up to 50 kilometers. For what? For what purpose? From the place of business of the consignor to the place of business of the transporter. Now you are giving your goods to the transporter, and the distance from your premises to the transporter's premises is 50 kilometers, not the premises, not the distance from your premises to the customer's premises. Don't get confused with that. this provision of 50 kilometers is only because you don't know the vehicle number. That's why they've given relaxation. So when you are transferring some goods, you are transporting some goods, you are moving the goods, then the distance from your location to the transporter's location is up to 50 kilometers, because generally the transporter's premises won't be beyond that. So for that distance, you don't have to mention part B. In our example, what we said is supplier is in one place and the distance to the customer B is 10 kilometers. Still, EV bill is required. There is no relaxation. The relaxation, please understand, it is not for the kilometers. The relaxation is for the objective, that the place of business of the consigner to the place of business of the transporter for further transportation. If that distance is up to 50 kilometers, then part B is not mandatory. And second exception is from the place of business of the transporter finally to the place of business of the consignee. Because the transporter sometimes may not bring the goods to your location, he will bring it at his place. From there, you have to arrange your vehicle and get it. For that, also, you will not require e-way bill. क्लियर है अभी? तो ई-वे बिल 50 किलोमीटर तक नहीं चाहिए, ऐसा कोई प्रावधान नहीं है. सिर्फ एक बात है कि अगर सप्लायर को सप्लाई करना है गुड्स और ट्रांसपोर्टर की जगह तक जाना है, तब तक उसे पार्ट बी मेंशन करने की जरूरत नहीं है, क्योंकि उसको जो गुड्स मूव हो रहा है उसमें उसको पता ही नहीं है कि कौन सा गाड़ी नंबर जाएगा. इसीलिए पार्ट बी उस जगह पे एग्जेम्पशन दिया गया है. And in case of over-dimensional cargo also, this relaxation will apply. But for over-dimensional cargo, practically this will not apply, because there you will have to get the vehicle on at your place. So there will not be a requirement that you will transport the goods from your place to the transporter place. That requirement, that position will not come at all. और सेकेंड पॉइंट, तेज चौहान, सेकेंड पॉइंट ये बोलता है कि जब आप ट्रांसपोर्टर उसके वेयर हाउस में लेके आ गया गुड्स, वहां से आपको आपके फैक्ट्री में लेके आना है. ठीक है, तो आप आपके लोकल गाड़ी लेके जाएंगे या दूसरी गाड़ी लेके जाएंगे, तो जो ट्रांसपोर्टर के जगह से आप लेके आ रहे हो अपने जगह पे, उसमें आपको पार्ट बी में मेंशन करने की जरूरत नहीं है, क्योंकि उसमें ई वे बिल ऑलरेडी है और उसको आप क्या कर रहे हो, ट्रांसपोर्टर के लोकेशन से आपके बिजनेस प्लेस पे लेके आ रहे हो, तब भी ई वे बिल पार्ट बी की जरूरत नहीं है. Apart from these 2 points, Part B details is mandatory. Correct. Apart from just these two things, exceptions, always Part B will be mandatory. ट्रेन में पार्ट बी कौन फिल करेगा? सो ट्रेन में क्या होता है प्रोविजन, दैट अगर आप ट्रांसपोर्ट करते हो, ट्रांसपोर्ट करने के बाद आपको पार्ट बी फिलअप करना पड़ेगा. सो ट्रेन के लिए, क्योंकि देयर इज नोबडी, दिस ट्रांसपोर्टर रेलवे वाले तो फिलअप नहीं करेंगे, तो पूरा ट्रांसपोर्ट होने के बाद आपको पार्ट बी फिलअप करना पड़ेगा. ठीक है. Shall we now proceed to the chapter for today? Any more queries? Yeah, some any movement of goods caused by defense information. Like this is the exception by defense formation, like ISRO, DRDO, जो गवर्नमेंट डिफेंस ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस है. ठीक है, डिफेंस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का इंफॉर्मेशन पब्लिकली नहीं रहना चाहिए. तो इसीलिए जो भी डिफेंस के प्रोडक्ट्स है, ओके, जैसे आर्मी के लोग जब कुछ गुड्स इंपोर्ट करते हैं या कुछ गुड्स ट्रांसपोर्ट करते हैं फ्रॉम द सप्लायर टू उनके लोकेशन, तब ई वे बिल की जरूरत नहीं है. CLS person, what is CLS person, Asta? composition dealer. This is CTP, not CLS, composition taxpayer. He can raise e-way bill for intrastate. Yes, he can. So there is no exception saying somebody was saying that for intrastate transactions, e-way bill is not required. Nothing doing like that. Even for intrastate transactions, e-way bill will be required. करेक्ट आर्मीज और नेवी जो डिफेंस के लिए सिक्योरिटी की वजह से एग्जेम्पशन है कि उनको ई वे बिल रेज करने की जरूरत नहीं है. ओके सिंस ई वे बिल वी हैव नाउ सभी का क्लियर हो गया. नाउ विल स्टार्ट विद द प्रेजेंट टॉपिक दैट इज पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्सेस. ठीक है. नाउ अभी क्या हुआ है कि गवर्नमेंट को पता है कि सब लोग जीएसटी पे करेंगे, सो दे आर टेलिंग कि पे करो जीएसटी. और हम कैसे पे करेंगे? व्हाट आर द मेथड्स ऑफ पेइंग द टैक्सेस ऑफ जीएसटी? डिस्कस दिस इन द आईटीसी चैप्टर. करेक्ट. जब हम आईटीसी पढ़ रहे थे तब हमारा डिस्कशन हो चुका है कि कौन है सप्लायर, कौन है रिसीवर, और किसको टैक्स पे करना है और कैसे टैक्स पे करना है. आईटीसी में हमने देखा कि आईटीसी जो भी हम लेते हैं वो कहाँ पे जाता है? All the ITC, where does it go? It forms part of credit ledger, correct? So can you make the payment of taxes through credit ledger or cash ledger? आपने सेल किया है. Okay, you have for the sweet shop, what we are asking the person just day before yesterday to raise a e-way bill. He's not raised the e-way bill, so that matter is going on. But that same person is now filing his GST returns. Now, while he's filing his GST returns, on that 5 lakh rupees, he has to pay 5% of tax. Okay. On that, he has to pay 25,000 rupees of tax. Now, he is saying that I've already paid. He's already paid the 25,000 rupees. Now I am sitting and filing his returns. Now, when I'm filing his returns, I am not able to see this 25,000 rupees. But he is claiming that he has paid the tax of 25,000 rupees. So what do we do? How do we reconcile? Today is 19th. Tomorrow is 20th. I have to file the returns by the 22nd. 22nd is the due date now. So if I have to file the returns on the 22nd, what should I do? How do I know that what he's paid is correct? And he has paid correct or no? How do I give him a confirmation? Take the credit ledger. Credit ledger, maybe you feel that whatever taxes is paid will appear there. Any proof he has, he is giving his bank statement that the amount is debited from his bank account and it has gone somewhere. Verify the GST common portal. Okay, I will check in the GST common portal. Where should I see in the GST common portal? इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर में देखना पड़ेगा. Uh-huh. So you are saying whatever payment I will do, it will go and sit in my credit ledger. Tej Prakash is saying cash ledger. Sir, in GSTR 1 में रहेगा. अरे बाप रे, wow. Miss P is saying that whatever payment you do will go in the GSTR 1. In GST portal, his liability register will reduce. So that is another opinion. We are getting varied varieties of answer. Any other options? GSTR 3B. गो टू कॉमन पोर्टल. हाँ भाई, कॉमन पोर्टल में रहेगा निधि, ठीक है. योर आंसर इज 50% करेक्ट. लेकिन कॉमन पोर्टल के अंदर कहाँ पे ढूंढूं मैं? मुझे रिटर्न्स फाइल करना है. और पार्टी ने बोला पेमेंट किया है, लेकिन जब मैं रिटर्न्स फाइल कर रहा हूँ तो मुझे पता नहीं चल रहा है कहाँ पे करना है. पेमेंट जीएसटीआर 3 के टाइम पे होता है. मतलब उसके पहले किसी को पे करना है तो पे नहीं कर सकते. उनके पास आज रुपए हैं, कल खर्च हो जाएंगे. दे विल स्पेंड फॉर समथिंग. अब उनको अगर पे करना है तो पे नहीं कर सकते, आपका मतलब. मोहम्मद फरहान सिंह, वी हैव टू कॉल द सप्लायर टू अपलोड द बिल इन जीएसटी वन सो दैट बिल रिफ्लेक्टेड इन टू बी. अरे भैया, मैं तो उसका बोल ही नहीं रहा हूँ. इट विल अपीयर इन टू बी. यू आर एब्सोल्युटली राइट. When the supplier is uploaded in GST1, it is appearing in my 2B. Now I am talking about the situation where after set off of this 2B also there is some liability, and the sweet meat stall fellow has paid the taxes. Now how do I adjust this? Suppose uska sales tha 5 lakh rupees, जिसमें liabilities are 25,000 rupees. Now he has paid this 25,000. मेरे credit में कुछ था ही नहीं. I did not have anything in my credit ledger. So where will I use this? Correct, Chauhan. It is the last date of payment, so you can pay it before that also. Nidish Vishwakarma is saying electronic ledger of cash and input tax. No. How can it be one credit in electronic credit ledger and cash ledger also? दो जगह कैसे हो सकता है? Yes. So everybody are getting confused. So only few question I can, few answers I could get from Priya and Dhanush giving the correct answer that it will appear in the electronic cash ledger. How will it appear? He has made the payment, so it should come in bank account. Few people are saying it should come in credit ledger. So that is how we will read this chapter to find out that if any payment is made, where does it go and sit? Okay. First is, what is CGST? CGST stands for, to understand the payments, we'll have to have this basic knowledge which we already have, but just एक बार brush up कर लेते हैं. Whatever is the CGST tax, which is called as Central Goods and Service Tax, goes to the central government. SGST or the UTGST goes to the state government, or if it's a union without legislature, then it will go to the respective सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट. ओके. यूटी जीएसटी अगर है, यूटी यूनियन टेरिटरी को जाएगा. एसजीएसटी विल गो टू द स्टेट गवर्नमेंट. आईजीएसटी, सीजीएसटी also will go to the central government, and IGST also will go to the central government. So this is the way how the taxes is structuring. When you make any intrastate supply, you will pay CGST and SGST. CGST goes to the central government, SGST goes to the state government. And when you do any transaction interstate, you will pay IGST. IGST goes to the central government. Okay. Apart from CGST, SGST, and IGST, which we make payment, there will be some TDS also which is deducted. So that TDS also will reflect in our electronic cash ledger, and TCS also. So any TDS and TCS collected, what GS, whether the income tax TDS, that credit will come? No. Income tax TDS will go to your income tax thing itself. Here we are talking about TDS and TCS payment under the GST law. Okay, that is what will come here. And then we will discuss finally on the interest, penalty or fees or any other payment which has to be made. What is TDS and TCS exactly? TDS means tax deducted at source. Whenever you do any transaction, you sell something to the government will deduct some amount and pay you. That is called as TDS. So this amount also, once they've deducted, it should come to you. So will they give the government come and give you the cash? No. So whatever TDS is deducted, that TDS once you accept it, it goes and consolidates with your electronic cash ledger. ठीक है, तो कैश लेजर में क्या होगा, पूरा टीडीएस भी आ जाएगा जो गवर्नमेंट ने डिडक्ट किया है। और टीसीएस वो होता है जब ई कॉमर्स के साथ आप डील करते हो। तो टीसीएस विल बी कि जब यू आर डूइंग एनी ट्रांजेक्शन विद द इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर, देन दैट पर्सन विल डिडक्ट सम अमाउंट which is called as TCS. Clear, Priya, on TDS and TCS? Clear? So that is how we will go through it. That is these are things which we'll cover today. So when you register under GST, automatically in the login itself, three ledgers are getting created. Okay. Once you register, you will get a user ID and password. You will have a separate GST IN number and you will have your name displayed there on the portal, which means it is your GST. Be careful that when any transaction you do, that electronic ledgers is different for each taxpayer. Now, when you are registered, आपने registration लिया है, आपके पोर्टल पे आपके इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर, आपके इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कैश लेजर और आपके अकाउंट पे इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर रहेगा। अगर मैं रजिस्टर करता हूं तो फिर मेरे अकाउंट पे इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कैश लेजर, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर और इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर रहेगा। ठीक है, सो दीज आर द इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लेजर्स, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कैश लेजर, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर एंड इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लायबिलिटी लेजर. So these two ledgers prepared and updated by the taxpayer, that is electronic cash ledger and electronic credit ledger. Now what does this electronic cash ledger means? Whatever cash you pay to the government through the bank account, through the online or any mode, whatever payments you make, that will all commence it in your electronic cash ledger. Okay. Next is electronic credit ledger. Whatever ITC you have claimed, we can use that, right? So when you want to use the balance in your credit ledger, then you have to file your return. Then your returns may say जो भी liability है that gets offset from the credit which is there in the electronic credit ledger. तो आपको पे करना है, आपको प्रिपेयर करना है. How will you prepare the electronic credit ledger? By filing the GST or 3B in a correct manner. अगर आप ठीक से प्रिपेयर करते हो तब ये इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कैश लेजर इज नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट इज प्रिपेयर्ड एंड अपडेटेड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ रिटर्न्स. जब रिटर्न अपने आप खुल जाता है, दिस ऑटोमेटिकली ओपन्स व्हेन यू फाइल योर रिटर्न्स व्हिच इज योर इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर. Okay, so once you open, you will have access to electronic cash ledger and credit ledger, and then once you file any return, then your electronic liability register also gets popped up. ठीक है, तो इसका मतलब क्या है, जब हम रजिस्टर करते हैं तब तीन लेजर स्वतः ही खुल जाते हैं, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर और कैश लेजर ऑटोमेटिक रजिस्ट्रेशन के पर, और जब आप रिटर्न फाइल करते हो तब इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर खुल जाएगा. Sir, if our tax is 70, can we set off complete 70 using credit? Yes, we can set off, except there is one exception. Like we had said that whenever somebody has turnover more than 50 crore, then for them, electronic liability register, electronic credit ledger, you can utilize only 99% from that. So there are exceptions, and we had seen in that thing, that chapter, that yes, generally whenever somebody has turnover more than 50 lakhs, right? uh, more than that limit, then you have to pay the taxes from at least 1% from the cash ledger, and balance 99% you can utilize from your credit ledger. But otherwise, Dhanush, yes, if your tax is 70 and you're not falling on that limit under 88B, then you can set off full 70 rupees from the after using the credit. When we file 3B, after that electronic liability register opens, yes, when you file your first return, that should be sufficient. It's not that it will get opened and it will get closed. So once you file your 3B returns, that is sufficient. आपका electronic liability register create हो जाएगा, and then you can make the payment from the electronic liability register. लाइबिलिटी रजिस्टर क्या होता है? करेक्ट, वो हम देखते हैं अभी इन डिटेल में। तो फर्स्ट ये समझ लीजिए कि जीएसटी रजिस्ट्रेशन करते ही आपके तीन लेजर खुल जाएंगे, कैश लेजर, क्रेडिट लेजर और इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लाइबिलिटी लेजर। पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्स हम सेक्शन वाइज ब्रेकअप दिया है यहाँ पे, ताकि आपको एग्जाम में इजी हो। दैट liability register हम दिखाते हैं आपको। सर, if we set off the tax to be paid from the electronic credit ledger, so where it will be shown? Yes, so we have a diagram to explain you whatever is the credit ledger। आपके पास बहुत सारे क्रेडिट्स अक्यूमुलेट हो गए। अब जब आप रिटर्न्स फाइल करोगे तब वो पूछेगा कौन से लेजर से लो। इफ यू आर सेलेक्टिंग एवरीथिंग, देन देयर विल बी बेटर। ओके, सो फर्स्ट इज सेक्शन 49 से शुरू होता है द पेमेंट थिंग। सेक्शन 49 says payment of tax, interest, penalty and other amounts. Then it says that there are three ledgers which will get maintained. Section 49A says about utilization of the ITC. Okay, 49A says utilization of our ITC. 49B says what is the order of utilization of your credit. Then section 50 talks about interest on delayed payment of taxes. 51 talks about the circumstances in which TDS becomes mandatory. TDS के provisions, interest becomes mandatory, or some transaction करते हो that TDS becomes mandatory. That is section 51. 52 says that when TCS is mandatory, and 53 is in case of transfer of ITC. When you want to transfer the input tax credit, then section 53 will apply. Clear? So first, liability on supply is firstly to get into payment, we need to know how do you pay the taxes. Generally, liability on the supply, whatever is made, is determined on a monthly basis, which is reported in the GSTR 3B, but payment is made through different section. That is, whatever is your supply transaction, tax will mostly not get involved there. So it will be a normal supply. Okay. So that what does that mean? That once you make a sale today, you don't have to pay the taxes today itself. हमने सेल कर दिया है आज, क्या आज ही टैक्स पे करेंगे? नहीं ना। तो जब भी सेल होता है उसको कंसोलिडेट करके हम मंथली रिटर्न में बताएंगे, एंड देन वी विल फाइल द रिटर्न्स। जब रिटर्न फाइल करते हैं तब भी दो तरह के रिटर्न होते हैं। वन इज योर डिटेल्स ऑफ आउटवर्ड सप्लाई, एंड वन इज डिटेल ऑफ योर आउटवर्ड सप्लाई माइनस योर इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट। ठीक है, जब ये फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट रेज करते हैं दैट इज कॉल्ड, उसे कहते हैं GSTR 1। और जब हम सिर्फ सेल्स अपलोड करते हैं उसे GSTR 1 में फाइल करेंगे। और वो सेल्स जो हमने GSTR 1 में दिखा दिया गया है उसे ऐड करके जब एक ही लाइन में दिखाएंगे, क्योंकि उसमें डिटेलिंग नहीं चाहिए, डिटेलिंग चाहिए हमको सिर्फ GSTR 1 में। ठीक है, सिर्फ GSTR 1 में हमको दिखाना पड़ेगा। फिर क्या करना पड़ेगा, जीएसटीआर 3B में हमको समरी लेवल पे दिखाना पड़ेगा कि मेरा टोटल सेल्स इतना है, और फिर उसमें से आईटीसी रिड्यूस करेंगे और नेट जो है उसे हम जीएसटीआर 3B में पे करेंगे. Yeah, Dhanush. What I was saying is in GSTR1, we upload the sales details. Whatever is the outward supplies we make, that we disclose in GSTR1. Okay. Then whatever is the sales minus input tax credit, that offsetting and that detailing, that we do in GSTR3B. Yeah, please give brief of GSTR 1, 3A and 3B. That is exactly what I'm saying, Tej Prakash. Ki whatever sales you make, okay, whatever sales you make, that other person has to get the credit. For getting his credit, you have to upload all your sales in a statement called GSTR1. Okay, that is on GSTR1. And then once we complete everything, okay, once you complete everything, then you need to make the payment. That is happening through this payment mechanism, which we will discuss now. So if we set off the tax to be paid from the electronic credit ledger where it will be shown, so it will reduce from the credit ledger and go to the liability register. So एक से कम होगा, as we know double entry system है ना, वैसे ही this will also work like that. That credit ledger कम हो जाएगा और liability register बढ़ जाएगा. Why GSTR 1A is required? When you file GSTR 1, okay, after that, that liability has to be paid in GSTR 3B, but there is a time gap. GSTR 1 has to be filed by 13 and GSTR 3B by the 22nd. So is gap mein, if you find any difference, you can amend it through this GSTR 1A. Clear? So अपना liability determine हो गया monthly returns में, then we are paying it. Liability is not Liability not paid completely in cash. It can be paid partly in cash and partly from credit. Now, this example of 25,000 rupees, he will show it in his GSTR1 as sold 5 lakh rupees worth of goods and 25,000 is payable. But in the GSTR1, that is only a outward statement. GSTR1 is only a outward statement. No liability is payable just by filing GSTR1. Once you file the details in GSTR1, when you file details in GSTR1, that's only a statement. Then you have to pay the taxes and file a proper return. Wherein in this return, which is called as GSTR3B, we will disclose the sales, what is the tax payable, and we will also show what is our input tax credit. We will show that, and net amount, GS outward minus input tax credit, what is payable. We will show this is payable and pay the taxes there. Payment can be made through cash balance, that is how whatever taxes you deposit on the GST portal, or it can be paid from the credit ledger also. And for the provisions of CGST Act are on payment, returns, and everything are made applicable to the IGST Act also. So you don't have to file separate return, one for CGST, one for SGST, one for IGST. No, just one return, because this return provisions are applicable to IGST law also. So you just have to mention at one time. You don't have to file separate returns. Now, how does the electronic liability register get power from? They are all getting power from the rules. First is Rule 85, which says what is a electronic liability register. Then Rule 86, which talks about electronic credit ledger. Okay. 85 is liability register, 86 is credit ledger, and 87 is cash ledger. So you have three ledgers getting from Rule 85, 86, 87. 85 is electronic liability register, 86 is credit register, and cash ledger is coming from Rule 87. Correct. GSTR 1A amendment is only possible after 13 till 22nd. You're right. Okay. Now, electronic ledgers, electronic tax liability register, ITC register, and cash ledger tax liability register will reflect the total liability of the taxpayer. And okay, so I will explain it to you with a diagram. Okay, so then whatever is the theoretical part here, we will understand that in a better manner. जैसे अपना अकाउंटिंग दिमाग है कि हमको बैलेंस शीट दिखता है, हमको डेबिट और क्रेडिट दिखता है, टैली दिखता है. Like that itself, I have presented so that we can understand. Okay, so what is happening is what is an electronic cash ledger? Electronic cash ledger means a ledger wherein you make any payments. So any payments made through various modes. So whatever mode, how can I make the payment of taxes? What taxes I pay will go to the electronic cash ledger. Now, how do I make the payment? When I say various mode, what does this various mode mean? That will come in a separate slide wherein we will understand that payment of taxes can be made through cash, through online banking, through a check, or through a normal bank. Various modes of payment of taxes is possible, but all of them, electronic cash ledger is important. Okay, whatever payment you make goes to the electronic cash ledger. Okay, so that is what is this, that whatever payments we make goes to the electronic cash ledger, and any TDS or TCS. You remember, no? We had discussed on the TDS and TCS that कि जब भी TDS is deducted by the government, TCS is collected by the e-commerce operator. They will deduct it and they will reflect it or link it with your GST number so that it will come in your GST ledger. आपके GST ledger में ये आ जाएगा. ठीक है, so all this credits will come here. Then the debits from the electronic cash ledger, what you can utilize it for? You can utilize it for anything and everything. Electronic cash ledger के लिए आप किसी के लिए भी यूज कर सकते हैं, like for payment of tax, interest, penalty, fees or any other amount. Okay, so whatever payments you make in your cash ledger, you can utilize it. आप cash ledger से निकाल सकते हो for payment of taxes, interest, penalty, fees or any other amount. But what is the credit ledger? Electronic credit ledger means whatever input tax credit we claim. Like we had discussed on GSTR 1, right? GSTR 1 will be filed, then it will appear in your GSTR 2A. You will verify it. It will not directly come to your credit ledger. From the GSTR 2A, it will come in your electronic credit ledger. If you file your GSTR 3B returns and mention the amount, then it will come in your electronic credit ledger. And that credit ledger जो balance है, you can utilize it for payment of output tax under this law or the IGST law. You can utilize this for payment of only taxes. जो credit ledger है उसे आप सिर्फ टैक्स पेमेंट के लिए यूज कर सकते हो, लेकिन कैश लेजर में जो बैलेंस है उसको आप टैक्स, इंटरेस्ट, पेनाल्टी, फीस या कुछ भी अमाउंट के लिए यूज कर सकते हो. Then what does a challan mean? Will come. How to make the payment? You make the payment through a challan. TCS collected only by e-commerce operator? Yes. So didn't get the TDS TCS part? Yes. So you have supplied some goods to the government. ठीक है, आपने गवर्नमेंट को कुछ सप्लाई किया है. Now government, when they make payment to you, they have, suppose say you have made sales worth 1 lakh rupees to the government with taxes. Government has to give you 1 lakh rupees and taxes. They will give you 90,000 rupees. 10,000 rupees, they will tell, we have deducted TDS. Oh, you have deducted 10,000 rupees TDS. I am not getting in my bank account. Where is it gone? So they will tell you, go and see in your GST portal. We have given the 10,000 rupees to the government so that the government will give it to you. So when I go in my portal, I will see there is a column of TDS. I will click it. Yes, the government name is appearing. There it will show 10,000 rupees. So that 10,000 is called TDS. Now what can I use this? Where this TDS will come? Will it come in my credit ledger or cash ledger? This TDS will come in my cash ledger. Okay, it will come in my cash ledger. Cash ledger में ये चला जाएगा, the TDS whatever is deducted. Now that cash and the earlier any cash balance if I have, all of that I will use and make the completely I will use this and then make the payment. Okay. So I will get the TDS in my cash ledger. I can utilize it for payment of all my taxes. Got it now? Similarly with the TCS, it will come in my cash ledger and I can utilize it for making any payment whenever on the returns, whatever I have to pay, that will be paid. निधि विश्वकर्मा आप मॉड्यूल के पास नहीं जाइए, अगर आप मॉड्यूल भी पढ़ेंगे ये भी पढ़ेंगे तो फिर कंफ्यूज हो जाएंगे। मेरा प्रेजेंटेशन ध्यान से सुनिए, फिर आपको मॉड्यूल में जो भी है समझ में आ जाएगा। What do we do with the remaining balance which is left in the electronic cash ledger after doing the payment of tax interest? You just keep it. Next month, again, you will have sales. You can utilize that cash ledger balance for making payment of the next month. Asta Sethi, sir, when we make payment in GSTR 3B and mention the amount that is utilized from GSTR 2B, then it will appear in the electronic credit ledger? No, no. In your 3B, you will mention what is your sales and what is your input tax credit. Okay. Once you mention there, that amount will come in your electronic credit ledger, which is the input tax credit. Okay. Now you have to make the payment. So you will make the payment, right? And mention the amount that is utilized for GSTR 2B, then it will be appear in the electronic credit ledger. Whatever is the credit you mentioned there, that will come in your electronic credit ledger. ठीक है, समझ गए यहाँ तक? आर यू एबल टू डाइजेस्ट दिस? Sir, cash ledger is just like our bank account. Very good. You have absolutely understood it. This is like a bank account with the government. Okay. In your bank account, you can utilize for making any payment. You can use it for shopping and everything, right? So like that itself, your cash ledger is like a bank account, which is the bank account with the government. You can utilize it for making payment of GST only. So what if ITC is more than tax payable as per 3B? Will excess go to credit ledger? Yes. The credit, whatever we claim, will be sitting in the credit ledger. How much ever you are utilizing, you can utilize. Balance will be lying there itself. सेक्शन नंबर सबके याद करने की जरूरत नहीं है, नॉट रिक्वायर्ड। बैंक अकाउंट ओनली फॉर जीएसटी पर्पस, करेक्ट, क्योंकि सिर्फ जीएसटी खर्चे हो पाएंगे। प्रिया मिश्रा 4923, जो इंपॉर्टेंट सेक्शंस है, इफ दैट यू रिमेंबर दैट शुड बी सफिशिएंट। Electronic credit ledger is only for ITC availed, correct? Only for ITF availed. So whatever ITC availed will go to the credit ledger. From that, we can utilize for payment of tax only. Interest penalties, we cannot make the payment from the credit ledger. Okay, that is how credit ledger and cash ledger is there. So electronic cash ledger, it is a summary of all the deposit which is made by a taxpayer, treat it like a bank account with the government. Okay. Date of credit is on receipt of CIN from the collecting banker. There's a process, you make the payment, the bank will process it and then give it to in your credit ledger. So today, if I make the payment, if I make it online, it will come instantly. If I make it through offline, then the banker will process it and then deposit it. So whenever the amount is deposited in your credit ledger, that is the date of receipt. Okay. Then date of credit in the treasury of the state government is deemed to be the date of debit. When the government gets in its account, how will they get it? Once you make the payment, generally happen instantly online. If it is offline, it will take some time, then it will go to the government account. So date of debit in the electronic cash ledger and not the actual deposit. When it is debited from your bank account, that is not the date. Suppose there is any delay, you have made the payment, some bank server problem is there. Then in that case, your payment date will not be relevant. The date when it goes to the government account, that will be the relevant date. What are the features of tax electronically generated challan? So how do you make the payment of taxes under GST? Through a electronically generated challan. Okay, through the electronic challan, you will make the payment from the GST common portal. So you don't have a manual challan system. You have to go to your GST login. Your GST login, you have to go mention the amount what you have to pay and select the mode of payment. If you want to make NEFT payment, you want to make a fund transfer, you want to make payment at the bank through a counter, still you have to generate the challan from the GST portal. Once you mention the details and generate the challan, then only you can make any kind of payment. Like in our income tax, we used to have a challan which we could take it as like just a PDF form, mention it, mention the details, and go to the bank. They will make the payment. That is not possible in case of GST. Okay. Electronically generated from the GST portal. Now, if I want to make the payment for somebody else's GSTN, okay, GSTN is the number, right? Each person having a registration number will get a GST number. It's called as GSTIN. So he has to log into his GST portal. From his GSTIN, he will have to generate the challan. I cannot generate challan for somebody else's GST number. Each GST number is unique. I have to log into my GST number and generate. Now, that is the first feature, that it is an electronically generated challan, manual challan, not possible. Second is, it is a facilitation for the taxpayer by providing hassle-free. Since it is online, it is hassle-free. You don't have to worry about manual intervention. We cannot pay any other mode. We will see the payment mode, NEFT, debit card, and credit card also it says, but not yet started. Credit card, not possible. Apart from that, all other modes possible. You can make payment through cash also, but uska limit hai. Up till that, you can make payment through cash also. Convenience of making payment online. The payment of tax system makes the payment system all convenient online. Then logical tax collection data in the electronic format. The data collection happens in the electronic format. Faster remittance of tax revenue to the government account. It is a faster remittance of tax to the government account because government, we also can make the payment faster. Government can also collect it faster. Okay. Then there is completely paperless. You don't have to get involved in the paper unless you go to the bank and make the payment of deposit. Otherwise, it is completely paperless. Speedy accounting and reporting. The accounting and reporting of the taxes also happens very fastly. As soon as the government gets it, it appears in your electronic cash ledger. Electronic reconciliation also happens very easily. Simplified procedure for the banks, and it provides a warehousing of digital challan, which means all the challans can be seen on your portal. So it provides that complete access. So this is the basic features. When they ask you what are the features of payment of tax, you could mention this. Now, how the payment is made? for any intrastate supply, we know what payment is made for intrastate supply. When you mention intrastate supply within the state, CGST and SGST is paid. For interstate, IGST is paid. So we cannot pay any other mode. Can we pay for any other person? We cannot pay for any other person. So can you please repeat the meaning of challan? Yes, challan means a document through which we make the payment of taxes. Now, what will this challan have? This challan will have details like GSTIN number. It will not have, it will have the number of the GSTIN number. Okay, what is the amount and what head you are making payment, whether CGST, SGST or IGST. Okay. Now, payment can be made for intrastate supply, interstate supply. Now, the government has to make the payment, right? So, they will, when she said that TDS will be deducted when I supply to the government will make the TDS payment. So, how will they make? They will also generate a challan, and like how we file the return, they will also file the return, and that TDS will come to us. And in addition, interest, penalty, fees, and other payments also is made through this electronic cash ledger. So all this payment is made through a challan itself. Addition, interest, penalty, fees also we will mention in the challan. Now, who is liable to pay GST? Liability to pay GST applies only on the supplier, mostly on the suppliers, correct? But in case of when you are supplying, you have to pay the taxes. In some cases, it is on the recipient. When is it? In case of import and in case of reverse charge, it is on the recipient. But in some cases, neither the supplier pays, neither the recipient pays. Who pays it? We had discussed under 9.5 that an e-commerce operator. An e-commerce operator will pay on behalf of the supplier and the recipient. That is the third category. So there are three categories of taxpayers. One is the supplier, second is the receiver. Receiver will be in case of reverse charge mechanism and imports. And third category is a person who is neither a supplier and not a purchaser. That is a e-commerce category of person when the e-commerce person will pay the taxes. Okay, like a Ola cab. Ola driver will not pay or neither will I pay. The taxes will be paid by the Uber or the aggregator and who will collect taxes from the customer. What are the modes of payment? Payment of taxes. Everybody had this query on what are the modes of taxes. Modes of taxes is online. Online, how can we make the payment? By using credit card, debit card, or UPI payment, or a IMPS from any bank. And offline, that is, you can go to the bank, write a check for NEFT, like you have an instruction. आप बैंक जब जाते हो, बैंक को आप चालान दोगे, and then you will mention NEFT to the government account, then they will do a NEFT transaction. So if you have online banking, then you can go for the online mode. If you don't have online banking, but you want to make a transaction faster, then you will go through a NEFT or a RTGS. So there are two modes of making payment through offline mode or over the counter through authorized banks for deposit up to 10,000 rupees per challan per period by cash, check और डिमांड ड्राफ्ट. मतलब अगर आपको बैंक में जाके जमा करना है कैश से या चेक से, the limit is only up to 10,000 rupees. Above that, you have to go for NEFT or RTGS क्योंकि the limit they want to keep it very less. So offline transaction through cash, check or demand draft only 10,000 rupees. QR available? Yes, UPI is available. You can make the payment through UPI. That is also online payment, which is permitted. Not QR exactly, UPI ID. You have to give the UPI ID, then you can make the payment. क्लियर कि आपको अगर ऑफलाइन पेमेंट करना है, कैश के थ्रू पेमेंट करना है, तब लिमिट सिर्फ 10,000 तक का है, उसके ज्यादा आप पे नहीं कर सकते हो. नाउ this limit of 10,000 what we had said in some situation it will not be applied. इसका मतलब क्या है? Above 10,000 also you can make the payment when only in specific situation when the deposit is made by government departments. गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट को कुछ टैक्स डिपॉजिट करना है, तब उनके लिए 10,000 नहीं, वो कितना भी कर सकते हैं. Okay, because if the government is dealing in any transaction wherein cash is available with them, so for the government departments they have given this exception. एनईएफटी और आरटीजीएस में 10,000 का लिमिट नहीं है, नहीं है. एनईएफटी और आरटीजीएस में कुछ भी अमाउंट का कर सकते हैं. What does IMPS mean? So these are all banking terminology. Somya, IMPS and RTGS, that instant money gets transferred. That is called as IMPS. And IMPS is when there is a block, payment happens. So IMPS, the payment happens instantly. Instant money transfer, you can say, is the meaning of IMPS, but it is up to a limit. Okay, up to limit. If the limit crosses, then you have to definitely make payment through NEFT or RTGS. Instant money transfer can happen through IMPS. Immediate payment services. Immediate payment services from any bank is the meaning of IMPS. Like how you do a QR code. Similar to that, when you mention the other person's bank account number, immediately the money gets transferred. That is IMPS services. Okay. Now we are talking about when this limit of 10,000 will not apply. It will not apply in the following cases: when deposit is made by the government, or when the proper officer or any other officer is authorized to recover the outstanding dues from any person. You have made the sales, but you have not made the taxes. Then the officer is coming to you and he says that this is the outstanding dues which you have to pay. So now you tell to the officer, I don't have so much money in my bank account. I have only money in my cash. I have only cash in my hand. And you are telling me that only 10,000 I can make the payment. So there, in such situation, they will come and say that, okay, since there is some outstanding recoverable from this person, then we will allow him through making the payment through cash. So whether registered or no, including recovery made through attachment की गवर्नमेंट आ गया है कि आपका इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी अटैच करेगा, तब आप बोलते हो नहीं मेरे पास कैश है लेकिन आप मुझे पेमेंट के लिए अलाउ करो. देन इन दैट सिचुएशन when the proper officer has come for recovery, he will write a letter and then you can make the payment through cash for amount more than 10,000 also. Then, proper officer or any other officer who is authorized for the amounts collected by way of cash, check, or demand draft during any investigation or enforcement. During investigation, one is when they are doing a recovery. This is on recovery, and this is when they come for enforcement. Investigation के लिए आते हैं. That what is investigation, what is enforcement is a little technical term. Basically, when they are coming to your premises and doing an investigation, उस टाइम पर भी अगर टैक्स पेमेंट करना है, दैट कैन बी मेड पेमेंट थ्रू चेक और कैश फॉर अ लिमिट अबाउट 10,000 ऑल्सो. और इन अ केस वेयर अ डिपॉजिट इज टू बी मेड बाय पर्संस नोटिफाइड बाय द कमिश्नर. कमिश्नर अगर नोटिफाइड करता है कि कोई एग्रीकल्चरिस्ट है और कुछ कैटेगरी ऑफ पीपल है जिनको पेमेंट कैश से करना है, जब वो नोटिफाई करते हैं, तब दोज पीपल ऑल्सो कैन मेक द पेमेंट थ्रू over the counter for a limit about 10,000 rupees. ठीक है, clear till now on the payment part. Next is on the challan. People are asking what is a challan, right? Awesome. So challan, we'll have to understand. What we'll do is we'll take a break of 10 minutes and then we'll assemble back and discuss from the challan. So we're discussing on the challan. What is a challan? It's not like a physical challan. It is electronically generated challan, which is generated from the GST portal itself. And it contains a unique 14-digit common portal identification number. I will do one thing. I will show you a copy of the challan so that whatever is a theoretical thing, we can understand this. First, I'll show you. There are two things. One is the creation of the challan. After the challan is created, you get the proper challan. So first is a payment receipt. Okay. This is CIN and you have CPIN. Yeah. Okay. So this is a CPIN, which is generated once you log into the GST portal. This is only a payment challan, which is a GST PMT-06 payment challan. And this is a challan for deposit. Okay, this is not yet a number. This is just the payment which you are about to make. Okay, this is not the final challan. This is it's like an application. First you apply, once it gets accepted, then you get the final one, right? Similar to that, this is just a application. This is called as CPIN, Challan Processing Identification Number. This is for challan for deposit of course, goods and service tax. Challan is generated on this date and it has expiry date. Details of the taxpayer, GST IN will generated, name of the entity will come, email ID and mobile number. Then important thing, the major head. What taxes are you paying? CGST, SGST, IGST, or cess? Okay. So that main head will come. Then the minor head. Are you paying tax, interest, penalty, fees, or others will be generated over here. And based on this, as we had said, there are three options. E-payment. If you want to make e-payment, you will click on this. If it is over the counter, select it. Over the counter, we know the limit is just 10,000 rupees and NEFT and RTGS and the particulars of the depositor. And the paid challan information here, it is not appearing because it is not yet paid. So before, this is the way to generate the challan. Once you generate the challan and make the payment, then the payment information will come. What is interest? Interest is for late payment. So once you make the payment of taxes late, then interest has to be paid. That is the portion on interest. Now, once you make this challan payment, then you get the actual payment. Okay, wherein this is called CPIN, the deposit date and everything gets generated, and the BRN number gets generated, and a challan identification number. So initially we did not have a challan identification number, but after making the payment, we have a challan identification number. ठीक है, तो हम जब पेमेंट करते हैं, पेमेंट करने के बाद जो डॉक्यूमेंट जनरेट होता है उसे कहते हैं फाइनल चालान या फिर पेमेंट रिसिप्ट. इसके अंदर चालान आइडेंटिफिकेशन नंबर भी आता है जो आपको इंडिकेशन देगा कि हाँ आपका पेमेंट हो चुका है. So this is the challan. Whatever amount you have entered it will get reflected over here. Here you will see the mode of payment and the payment details are appearing. Got it? So this is how the challan looks under the GST law. This is all not manually keyed in. This is all coming from the GST portal itself. You only have to key in the under the which head you want to make the payment. That's all you have to do. Okay, now coming back to our presentation, whatever was the theoretical aspect we have mentioned. So it's a 14-digit common PIN, CPIN, as we had seen on the left-hand side. You get the unique 14-digit number, जो system he will generate and give it to you. Now, who can generate the challan? You as a taxpayer. If you have represented somebody, then your authorized representative can generate it. Departmental officer or any other person paying tax on behalf of the taxpayer. That is Not that anybody can make the payment. Either अगर आप auction में जाते हो, then the auctioneer can make the payment, or then when there is a recovery by the state authorities, they can make the payment. Now they have recovered some properties from you. Now they have to make the payment of the taxes, what is shortfall, that can be done. Okay. Now, certain key details of the challan will be like what we have seen: name, address, email ID, GSTN of the taxpayer will be auto populated. जब आप login करते हो आपके GSTN में, तब ये details automatically आ जाएंगे. Then single challan. Important aspects of challan is आपको हर CGST, SGST अलग अलग challan नहीं चाहिए. One challan for all the payments. The validity period of the challan is 15 days, which means that once you generate the challan, within 15 days, you have to make the payment. Otherwise, what will happen? That challan will get expired. You have to generate a new one. No major implication, but the validity of that detail will get expired. चालान वुड नॉट हैव अ jurisdiction लोकेशन कोड. मतलब आपको इसी ऑफिसर को खाते में जाना वैसा नहीं है. आपके GSTIN का jurisdiction जो है वो नॉर्मल jurisdiction है. यू डोंट हैव टू सेलेक्ट एनी jurisdiction अंडर द चालान ऑप्शन. Unregistered person or a CTP or NRTP, how will they make payment? Because a casual taxable person, before registering, he has to make the payment, right? So for that, the GST authorities are a person who is unregistered and government wants him to make the payment. How will he make the payment? Through a temporary identification number. Like everybody else who is registered, they will have GSTIN, but a person who is not registered, he will just have a TIN. TIN means temporary identification number. Other basic process is the time of payment, from when you can make the payment and things. I think we'll come to the important aspect of the heads. The GST payment has to be made under the proper head: IGST, CGST, SGST, and cess. These are the four major heads. Within each of them, जैसे IGST हो गया, IGST के अंदर also you have to mention the proper head, whether you are making payment of tax, interest, penalty, fees, or others. So earlier, amount available under the major or minor head cannot be offset with other. Like if you had to make payment of taxes, you had made the payment of interest under the same head, but the category is different, right? Tax is tax, interest is interest. If you have made payment of tax under interest, how will it get offset? It will not get offset. So your challan have to be very careful. But now through a section 49(9) permits this form PMT 9, which means अगर आपने interest पे कर दिया है instead of payment of taxes, you can file this PMT 09 form and tell that remove it from interest, add it to my tax. On the back end, they will do it and give it. क्योंकि आपने रॉन्ग पेमेंट किया है. अर्लियर मेजर हेड टू माइनर हेड, माइनर हेड मेजर हेड, फ्रॉम वन हेड टू अनदर हेड, द चेंज was not possible. But now through this PMT 09, any correction in the payment after you have made the challan payment also, you can make the correction, because as we had said, it is like your bank account. You can move, transfer funds from one account to another, right? That's the reason you can transfer it. What is the meaning of ECL? ECL means electronic cash ledger. ECRL means electronic credit ledger. ECL means electronic cash ledger. We are talking about cash ledger only, no? So that is how the transfer from one head to another head is also possible. This is the PMT 09, wherein if you have made payment of CGST instead of making payment under SGST, you can transfer it. So only this transfer option is possible only in cash ledger. Ledger में this transfer option is not possible. So you have to be careful that when you're making payment of claiming any credit, CGST का credit है तभी आप utilize कर सकते हो. You cannot offset CGST with SGST, but payment under cash can happen. Cash ledger में जो भी payment करते हैं आप उसका inter-head transfer is possible. Major head set off or major minor both. Major head set off and major minor both possible. When is the generally GST payment is to be made? We know by the 20th of the succeeding month. You have to make it. Now, how do we utilize, whether should we utilize cash first or credit first, that will get. These are the various terminologies which we had seen it practically. The flow, how does it work? The back end, how does the government interact? This is very important to understand. So CGST penalty can be set off against IGST tax. Yes, आपने अगर चालान में CGST का पेनाल्टी मेंशन किया है, बाद में आपको नहीं उसको पे नहीं करना है, आपका IGST टैक्स पेमेंट करना है, through this PMT-09 you can transfer it. Okay, so what happens is GST and GST network has client credit the tax. First the taxpayer, यहाँ से शुरू होता है, taxpayer will go to the GSTN and he will mention the details and generate a CPIN. Then he will select the mode of payment. What is the mode of payment you want to make? Net banking, credit card, debit card, OTC. Once that is selected and payment is made, he makes the payment. Then it goes to the focal payment bank. FPB is the thing. It goes to the EFPB. From there, what happens? It goes to the GST network. And from the GST network, it gets access saying that, okay, all this process has happened. The banker has got the money. This EFPB is basically banker's interface. Banker के interface करने के बाद, they will report it to the GSTN saying that from this GSTN number, I've got this tax. And what is the head of tax, what I've received? This will get credited to the taxpayer's ledger. Once the GSTN confirms it, it will get credited to the taxpayer's ledger. Okay. Now, what are the rules for utilization of the amount in the electronic ledger? That cash ledger we know can be utilized for making payment of any kind of tax, interest, penalty, fees, or any other amount. But the electronic credit ledger, there are two ledgers, cash ledger or credit ledger. Credit ledger you can utilize only for payment of tax. Credit ledger cannot be utilized of payment of even reverse charge. ठीक है, दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि दो लेजर है, क्रेडिट लेजर और कैश लेजर. क्रेडिट लेजर में क्या आता है? जो सप्लायर ने आपको सप्लाई किया, आपने किसी से सर्विस लिया है. ओके, नाउ दैट सर्विस प्रोवाइडर ही विल प्रोवाइड द सर्विस टू अ रिसीवर. सो सर्विस प्रोवाइडर जो सर्विस प्रोवाइड करता है और रिसीवर रिसीव करता है, उसका क्रेडिट, you purchase something and you pay taxes to him, he will pay taxes to the government. The supplier will upload it in the GSTR1 and that credit will come to you in the credit ledger. Right? Now, this credit ledger का जो भी बैलेंस है, आपको जो भी टैक्स पे करना है मंथली रिटर्न में, आप उसके साथ ऑफसेट करके पे कर सकते हैं. Okay? But in case of cash ledger, you can make payment of anything and utilize it for any other purpose. Can you repeat the transfer of penalty? Yes, yes, Priya. Any other questions? Please come up. Priya, the question was, can I offset the CGST penalty against my IGST tax? Yes, whatever CGST penalty of I made the payment through cash ledger, later on I want to make the payment of IGST tax through this PMT-09, I can transfer it from the CGST penalty to the IGST tax and make the payment. Credit ledger में RCM cannot pay, yes. So whatever RCM liability you have, reverse charge liability, you cannot utilize the credit ledger. The credit ledger cannot be utilized for payment of tax under reverse charge mechanism. Any reverse charge mechanism, whatever is payable, you have to make the payment through your cash ledger itself. You have 1 lakh worth of credit, you have liability of RCM for 10,000 rupees. Can you utilize the credit ledger? You cannot. So credit ledger cannot be utilized for payment of your reverse charge also. आप use नहीं कर सकते for reverse charge. Once you make the reverse charge payment, that amount will be a liability which is paid off, and that much amount of credit you can claim. That is secondary. But first, any reverse charge liability, you have to make the payment through cash itself. Soumya, now you understood. Now, what about the penalty? If you have any penalty to be paid, you make the another deposit, right? I mean, by mistake, if you have deposited in your cash ledger, then I'm saying if it is under wrong head, you can offset it. You can offset it, or you can transfer it from one ledger, from one minor head to another minor head, from one minor head to another minor head of other major head. That is also possible. Is it possible that cash ledger has credit balance already available? Possible if supplier whom you have supplied to is deducted TDS, and in that case it will appear in your cash ledger, but otherwise it will not be created otherwise. Or you have deposited cash ledger, in the cash ledger say 1 lakh rupees this month, you have utilized 80,000 against your taxes, so in that case they will be already credit of this differential 20,000 rupees. Correct. If we deposit extra amount in cash ledger, then the cash ledger will have credit balance. Can we encash balance from cash ledger? Actually, yes, there is a refund that is called as refund procedure, that when you have excess balance in your cash ledger, you can withdraw it. But it has a process. You have to apply for refund. The officer will offset, see whether there's any other liability which you have. If there is any liability, they will offset it. Then only you can claim the refund. But it is possible. Yes, TDS and TCS will be shown in recipient's cash ledger. What kind of questions come from this chapter, theory or practical? I think mostly it will be theoretical, but practical can come in terms of the interest. We will do some practical questions in terms of interest calculation that may come up. But how do you offset what should be utilized will be relevant for you in any question, because they will ask you what is the tax payable and what is the ITC which you can utilize. So this chapter will help you to realize that. Okay. Whatever is the amount in your cash ledger, you can only utilize it. But if you want to utilize it, like you can transfer from one major head to minor head, or if you have another distinct person, to them also you can transfer. Okay. It's like giving loan. You can give loan to everybody, but the balance in your electronic cash ledger, you cannot give to anybody. You can only give to distinct person. We know the definition of distinct person, right? Provided there is no unpaid liability in the liability register. जैसे आपका रिटर्न्स है, आपका रिटर्न्स में तो लाइबिलिटी दिख रहा है और आपका कैश बैलेंस आप किसी को ट्रांसफर कर रहे हो, यू कैन नॉट बिकम सच अ दानवीर. आपको आपका लाइबिलिटी फर्स्ट पे करना है. आपका लाइबिलिटी पे कर दिया आपने, अगर कुछ कैश बैलेंस है, देन यू कैन गिव इट टू अनदर डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन. Those questions like in ITC, all right. नाउ हाउ डू यू यूटिलाइज योर क्रेडिट? आईटीसी यूटिलाइजेशन, कैश का आप कैसे भी यूटिलाइज करो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं. क्रेडिट का यूटिलाइजेशन का एक फॉर्मूला है विच इज दैट आईजीएसटी क्रेडिट को फर्स्ट यूटिलाइज करो. फर्स्ट आईजीएसटी को यूटिलाइज करो, फिर सीजीएसटी एंड देन एसजीएसटी. फर्स्ट आईटीसी को खत्म करो. No balance should be there in ITC. Then you can offset between CGST and SGST in any proportion. IGST credit to be set off with IGST liability. IGST credit, if available after the IGST liability, can be set off with CGST liability or with SGST liability. This can be done in any proportion. ऐसा नहीं कि 50-50 करना है. Few people have the misconception. ऐसा नहीं है. It is not necessary कि 50-50 होता है. Any proportion you can offset IGST credit with CGST or SGST. In our input tax credit chapter, we have done the workings, right? We told what is the best way to offset the credit. So in our input tax credit chapter, if you have not attended that, please listen to the video recording wherein we have done practical questions, right? Last two sessions, if you see, there will be some practical questions wherein we have exactly shown that how you can utilize the credit in a maximum manner because you have to optimize it ताकि आपका liability जो है कम पे कर सके. Next is CGST credit. What is confusion? Why there is an overlapping? We had this rules in ITC also. Then are these difference? No, same thing, right? Because if you don't explain there, then how do you know how to utilize it? The same rules what we discussed in ITC is repeated here. There cannot be an overlap within the same law. Okay. Then CGST credit, IGST credit यूटिलाइज हो गया. नाउ अभी आप CGST में आओगे. CGST में आएंगे तो CGST credit offset it with CGST liability, and if something is left you can offset with IGST liability. The first like with like, then the dislikes. Then similarly SGST with SGST liability, then if something is available with IGST liability. One very important aspect, no cross utilization between CGST and SGST. I think this is the same diagram which we have used, we will discuss here. IGST का ITC utilized for IGST liability and then with CGST or SGST in any proportion. CGST credit utilized with CGST liability and then with IGST if something is there. मतलब यहाँ पे आपका liability था, ये IGST credit से पूरा नहीं हुआ है, तो फिर CGST का credit भी आप utilize कर सकते हो, provided this CGST liability is met off. Then SGST also same thing. SGST का SGST के साथ balance with your IGST liability. तो फर्स्ट क्या कर रहे हैं हम लोग, IGST का क्रेडिट खाली कर रहे हैं पूरा. You have to empty off the credit of IGST to proceed for CGST or SGST. Yeah, this we are clear. Both common points for ECR or ECRL is when a refund, what is ECL? Electronic cash ledger, ECRL, electronic credit ledger. If you want to get this refund, you can get it. Like we know, electronic cash ledger का refund कोई भी ले सकता है, but credit ledger's refund only restricted people can claim it. When you're making any exports or when you're inverted duty structure, your buying rate percentage is more percentage. That is the rate of your raw materials is 18%, but your sale is at 5%. In such situation only you can claim the refund. Other situations you cannot get the refund of your electronic credit ledger. Electronic cash ledger, anybody can claim it, but electronic credit ledger's refund only two category of people can claim it. Now there are some restrictions for utilization of ITC. Now, what are these restrictions? The commissioner may, who is authorized, shall impose a restriction on utilization of ITC. मतलब आपका इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर है, उसे ब्लॉक कर दिया जाएगा कि आप उसको यूज नहीं कर सकते हो. When अगर the ITC is taken by a non-existent supplier or who is not conducting any business or without receipt of which you have claimed the credit or the tax in relation to which has not paid to the government. इन सच सिचुएशन आपका क्रेडिट लेजर जो है ब्लॉक कर दिया जाएगा. और एक और सिचुएशन, देयर आर फोर सिचुएशन. वन इज नॉन एग्जिस्टेंट सप्लायर, नॉन रिसिप्ट ऑफ गुड्स, not paid to the government, or you are not in possession of the tax invoice. In four cases में rule 86A, this you will have to remember. Rule 86A says that in these four situations, if you have claimed credit, the officer can block your credit. Such restrictions, he can impose restrictions on utilization of credit कि आप credit use नहीं कर सकते हो. How long can this work out? It can be imposed for a period of 1 year of imposing such restriction. एक साल तक आपका क्रेडिट क्या है, ताला दिया जा सकता है, only in these situations, not in all situations. इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर, जो भी हम लायबिलिटी पे करते हैं जीएसटी रिटर्न्स में या ऑफिसर कुछ करता है, तब तब क्या होता है, तब हमारा लायबिलिटी में बन जाता है. सर एंटायर क्रेडिट इज ब्लॉक्ड और ओनली क्रेडिट विद रिस्पेक्ट टू दैट पर्टिकुलर ट्रांजैक्शन. सी दिस क्रेडिट लेजर इज लाइक अ कॉमन बकेट. ठीक है, वंस यू पुट इट इन इट एवरीथिंग गेट्स मिक्स्ड, सो यू कैनॉट बाइफरकेट saying that what is in respect to that particular transaction. The whole credit ledger itself is blocked. Yes, payment of tax only today's class, निधि खत्म हो जाएगा आज. इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर, जब भी आप रिटर्न्स फाइल करते हैं, आउटपुट माइनस इनपुट जो है बैलेंस इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर में जाता है. जो लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर है, उसमें क्या होता है, लायबिलिटी फर्स्ट किसका क्रिएट होगा, आपका पिछला कोई ड्यूज है वो फर्स्ट होगा. इफ देर इज एनी आउटस्टैंडिंग लायबिलिटी यू हैव टू क्लियर दैट फर्स्ट, then this month's liability. After that, if there is any other amount which is demanded through 73 or 74, so these are the provisions through which the officer can do assessment. ओके, आपका असेसमेंट कर सकते हैं ऑफिसर्स. तो इफ देर इज एनी assessment which is carried out, so in such situations that liability has to be paid, but that has to be paid after the payment of any liability in your returns. जो आप monthly returns file करते हो, that's why it's very crucial कि उसका liability आप first pay कर दो. That liability has to be paid. Then if there's any balance, that can be paid for any demands. Huh. Now, this is what we will help you to understand. In your credit ledger, what you have, all you will credit the input tax. करेक्ट, जो भी आपने परचेज किया वो यहाँ पे आएगा. इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कैश लेजर में जो भी आप पेमेंट करते हो वो यहाँ पे आएगा. सो दिस इज एडिशन, आपका बैलेंस बढ़ रहा है. That's why even if this is credit, it is better because these are credit ledgers and cash ledgers. From here, you will debit. What you will debit from the electronic credit ledger, we can debit only payment of all liabilities. And from your cash ledger, you can make payment of all tax liabilities and all other payments, interest, penalty, कुछ भी कर सकते हैं, right? Other payments from electronic cash ledger, from your cash ledger, you can make payment of what? TDS payment, TCS payment, RCM liability, amount payable under 10, interest, penalty, fees or any other amount can be paid through the electronic cash ledger. ठीक है, तो कैश लेजर क्या है, उसका ऑप्शन बड़ा है, बहुत सारी चीजें आप पे कर सकते हो. नाउ ये डेबिट होके कहाँ जा रहा है, दिस डेबिट इज गोइंग एंड गेटिंग एडेड हियर इन द इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर. डबल एंट्री सिस्टम, जो यहाँ पे डेबिट है तो वहां पे क्रेडिट होगा. सो वॉट एवर इज गेटिंग डेबिटेड हियर इज गेटिंग क्रेडिटेड इन द इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर, विच इज अमाउंट डेबिटेड फ्रॉम द इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर एंड कैश लेजर कम्स हियर. और यहाँ पे क्या डेबिट हो रहा है, वॉट एवर इज द अमाउंट पेएबल, बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली इट हैज टू एंड, कांट बी अ चेन. सो दिस इज द एंड पेएबल, जो भी आपके रिटर्न्स में पेएबल आएगा, that is here, that is available towards tax, interest, late fees as per the return file. Or if it is not a return, if it's an assessment, that also will come here, that you will make the payment from the cash ledger or the credit ledger. Sir, is the restriction is for 1 year, cause after 1 year ITC expires? No, after 1 year ITC doesn't expire. ITC, once you get it, yes, it is always yours. गिव एनी एग्जांपल्स ऑफ ड्यूज. सपोज देर इज अ, जैसे आपने मिठाई की दुकान वाला सब बेचा था यहाँ पे मिठाई, नाउ ही डिडंट जनरेट द ई वे बिल और पेनाल्टी है, सो दैट्स अ ड्यू, राइट, क्योंकि उसने ई वे बिल जनरेट नहीं किया है, सो ही हैज टू पे सम ड्यूज. सो दैट इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड एज ड्यूज. यस, लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर टैली होगा. जो भी नहीं होगा वो वहां पे डेबिट ऐसे ही पड़े रहेगा, तो यू हैव टू मेक द पेमेंट, फिर वो टैली हो। Amount remaining in the electronic cash ledger after payment of tax can be claimed as a refund, but balance in electronic credit ledger cannot be claimed as a refund by everyone. Clear? Okay, this is fine. Payment provision of interest. Huh. Now we are talking about the interest, that any liability, whatever is there, if you don't make the payment within time, you have to make the payment of interest. Now, what is this interest saying? That interest is saying that, just one minute. So the amount from the electronic cash ledger and credit ledger, as it is transferred or after the utilization of credit, it is transferred. Mm, as it is transferred, because credit ledger itself is utilization of credit. So there's no double utilization. Whatever is the balance in your credit ledger, you will make it, the utilization happens through transfer to your electronic liability register. So कैश एंड क्रेडिट लेजर में से लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर में जाएगा, एंड एंड में पेमेंट करने के बाद लायबिलिटी विल टैली। करेक्ट, जो भी आप पेमेंट कर रहे हो, पेमेंट क्या कर रहे हो, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कैश लेजर में पे कर रहे हो, वहां से आपका जो लायबिलिटी है वहां से चला जाएगा। तो इंटरेस्ट जो भी डिले पेमेंट करते हैं हम, उसके ऊपर इंटरेस्ट पे करना पड़ेगा। इंटरेस्ट इज एट 18%। सेक्शन 50 सबसेक्शन 1 says that whenever you fail to pay the tax or any part of the tax, you have to make the payment of interest, which is at 18%. Now this interest provision says that except when the provision interest is charged for the day succeeding the day on which tax has to be paid, and a new proviso is introduced under section 50 subsection 1 says that अगर आप कुछ भी payment, you have to charge interest only on the net cash liability and not on the gross tax payable. मतलब आपका लाइबिलिटी 1 लाख है, आपने 60,000 रुपीज क्रेडिट से यूटिलाइज किया, 40,000 रुपीज कैश से यूटिलाइज किया, तो आपका इंटरेस्ट किसके ऊपर लगेगा? फुल 1 लाख के ऊपर, या 40,000 के ऊपर, या 60,000 के ऊपर, या किसी के ऊपर नहीं लगेगा? कैश पे ही लगेगा, करेक्ट। तो जो भी आप कैश पे पे करते हो उसके ऊपर ही लगेगा, क्रेडिट जो जो आप यूटिलाइज करोगे उसके ऊपर नहीं लगेगा, क्योंकि क्रेडिट जो है वो ऑलरेडी गवर्नमेंट के पास है। दैट्स व्हाई दिस क्वेश्चन इज इंट्रोड्यूस सेइंग दैट व्हाटएवर पेमेंट यू मेक फ्रॉम द कैश, only on that interest will be payable. Miss P, your question is valid. We studied that time limit for availing ITC is 30th November or filing of annual return, whichever is earlier. This is for claiming the balance in your credit ledger. Yes, once you have claimed it, ITC, it will be with you itself. Then you can utilize for this month, next year after that, any point of time. This is for claiming from electronic liabilities. No, this is for putting it in your electronic credit ledger. The time limit what was specified is for availing, which means जब नया आपको क्रेडिट लेना तब आपको इस टाइम के अंदर आपके रिटर्न में लेना है। That is the time limit to bring it to your electronic credit ledger. एक बार once you have got it in your credit ledger, you can offset with your liability register any month. The amount payable in cash, correct. So your answer is correct. 60,000 if I utilize the credit, no interest on that. Only on the 40,000 interest is payable. Okay. So now you tell me in this case, what is the gross liability and what is the net liability? Sales for the month is 15 lakhs and purchases and expense for the month is 10 lakhs. What is my gross liability? What is my net liability? ये चौहान आपको जो एवरेज रेट लगता है, दिस इज द जनरल रेट, वो आप अप्लाई कीजिए. देखिए, ग्रॉस लायबिलिटी इज 15 lakhs and net liability is 5 lakhs. Gross is GST payable on sale, the net is after using credit ledger. Okay. Gross is 15 lakhs, net is 5 lakhs. No. 15 lakhs is gross liability and 10 lakhs net liability. नहीं. So the liability is what? जो सेल करता हूँ वही पूरा liability है क्या? The sales, like first response given by Tej Prakash was exactly right. He was asking what is the GST rate. Your sales is not your liability. Your tax on your sales is your liability. So you have to apply the rate on the tax. 15 lakhs के ऊपर 18% जो है, that is your gross liability. And net liability is 15 lakhs into 18% minus 10 lakhs into 18%. That is your net liability. So don't get confused whenever any question is asked. Seek the question, read the question, then give your answer. So इसके ऊपर gross liability is not 5 lakhs. Okay, like most of you are given, gross liability is 15 lakhs into 18%. Correct, Priya, you have given the answer theoretically. So marks also you want practically or theoretically. Okay, so output tax is say 2,70,000, input tax is 1,70,000. Now, is that correct? Yes, this is correct. Now, what is your gross liability? What is your net liability? The gross is 2,70,000 and net is 90,000. No. Getting varied answers for net liability also. 90,000 कहाँ से आया दिव्या? Priya got 1,08,000. I don't know from where. 1,03,000. Yes. So your net liability is 1,03,000. Gross liability निधि विश्वकर्मा 48,600 कैसे हो? ये तो सीधा टैक्स बता रहा हूँ ना मैं. तो जब टैक्स है तब उसको आप परसेंटेज फिर से मत लगाइए. ठीक है. तो ये पहला क्वेश्चन अलग हो गया. अब दूसरे क्वेश्चन में आ रहे हैं हम. दूसरे क्वेश्चन में हम ये पूछ रहे कि ये आउटपुट टैक्स है या इनपुट टैक्स है. तो इसमें ग्रॉस और नेट क्या है? ग्रॉस लायबिलिटी 2,70,000 नेट लाइबिलिटीज 271 माइनस 167, 1,03,000। ठीक है, समझ गए इस यहां तक आप? Why 1,67,000? This is a different question. Yeah? It's not the same continuation of the old. This is a different question. ठीक है, तो इंटरेस्ट किसके ऊपर लगेगा आपको? इफ दिस पेमेंट फॉर द मंथ, सेल्स हुआ है, परचेजेस हुआ है, लेकिन आपने क्रेडिट क्लेम नहीं, आपने this is your output, this is your input, you have utilized the credit, balance will be your net liability. Interest will be your net liability, right? I want to ask if I can just leave e-way. I couldn't understand the chapter at all. Oh my god, इतना तो अच्छा एक्सप्लेन किया था. E-way can come for a theoretical aspect, so please go through it also. That will be very important. Yes, interest will be on 1,03,000 rupees because that is your net liability. Yeah. Now, how do you calculate interest? Say payment of tax and filing of monthly returns by a regular taxpayer. He's filing it for April 2019. Due date is 20th May. Now, in this cases, you tell me what will be the interest. Gross is 10 lakhs and ITC is 7 lakhs. So on interest, what is the interest which this person has to pay? Interest of 54,000. Somya, Priya, Chauhan, Ishan, Dev Mitra. Ishan Bisht, your answer is correct. Mrs. P, your answer is correct. Oh my God, people are getting confused. Now people thoda time देने से they're all coming up with the correct answer. The answer is, as most of you have corrected now, ड्यू डेट कब है? 20th में. पेमेंट कब किया? 18th में. तो इंटरेस्ट क्यों आएगा भाई? यस, नो इंटरेस्ट विल बी पेएबल. बस आपको पता है कि क्रॉस लायबिलिटी क्या है, नेट लायबिलिटी है. जस्ट you're fired with your answers. No, see the date also. Date is 18th May, so there is no interest liability. Second case. 54,000 wrong. 3 lakhs wrong. पूरा 3 लाख आप इंटरेस्ट भर दोगे भाई. Your liability itself is 3 lakhs and you're saying interest also is 3 lakhs. 90,000. नहीं भाई. इंटरेस्ट कितना भरना है? Interest is 18% per annum. Yes, the rate of interest we are discussing is 18% per annum. 54,000, Nonidhi. Yes, now correct answer आने लग गया है. Ishan, Vish, and P. Miss P has given the correct answer. Somya wrong. This 18% is per annum, madam. How can you apply the per annum rate per month and burden this fellow? 1,62,000 wrong, wrong, wrong. 9,000, 18,000. Arey baap re. 14,647 wrong. How many days have you considered? That is important. 99 days. It is actually close 100 days according to me. The interest payable is net liability is 10 minus 7, 3 lakhs. On 3 lakhs, 18% for into 100 divided by 365 days. Interest is per annum, so you have to take by the number of days. This 18% is not per month, it is per annum. So calculate the interest per annum, divide by 365 into number of days of delay. From 21st May till 28th August, according to me, it is 100 days. Made the payment on 28th, no. Yes, 28th only, madam. May में कितने दिन हुए? May has 31 days. So May will be 31 minus 21, 10 days. June will be 31 days. 10 plus 31 plus 28. No. 10 in May, June 30, July 31, and August 28. Yeah, 99. I think I've taken 100 days. May 11 days. Correct. So May 11 days, 30 days, July 31, and August 28. 100 days. Correct. Thousand seven ninety five. Correct. क्लियर. तो आपको इंटरेस्ट कैलकुलेशन डे बेसिस पे करना पड़ेगा. Yeah. Next comes the rule 88B, which says that. Done. Very good. Okay. Rule 88B says that if the tax has been belatedly paid through a credit balance on account of delayed filing of return, then interest is to be paid for the delay in filing the said return beyond the due date. Okay. And tax is paid by debiting the electronic cash ledger. Matlab, whenever there is a delay, if the tax has been lately paid through a credit balance on account of delayed filing of return, right? आपने return file कर दिया late, तो फिर interest is to be paid for the period of delay in filing the return beyond the due date. ठीक है. उसके लिए हम एग्जांपल देंगे, को बता रहे हैं यहाँ पे. इन अदर केसेस वेयर द इंटरेस्ट पेएबल इज डिले ऑफ पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्स अदर देन रिटर्न में जो भी डिले है, देन द पीरियड स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम द डेट टिल you make the payment, that will be the period. And where ITC interest is payable on amount of ITC wrongly availed, then the period what you will calculate is from the period starting from the date of utilization of such credit till you have reversed it. That will be the calculation. Now I'll take this with an example. Payment of tax and filing of monthly return by a regular taxpayer for April 2019. Due date is 30th May. Now, for April, he has declared the supplies in the month of April itself. Okay. And the actual filing date is 1st of June. And payment is made through electronic credit ledger for 6,000 and electronic cash ledger 4,000. So interest will be calculated on what amount? I'm not telling you to calculate interest. Just tell me interest will be calculated on what amount? Base क्या रहेगा? 4,000. दिव्या 6 नहीं है बिकॉज क्रेडिट लेजर जो है उसके ऊपर इंटरेस्ट नहीं लगता है. सो इट इज 4,000. करेक्ट. करेक्ट. नेक्स्ट. In second case, the return you're filing for April, but supplies declared in tax period pertaining to March. मार्च का सेल आप यहाँ पे अभी डिक्लेयर कर रहे हो तो फिर इंटरेस्ट किसके ऊपर लगेगा? 5,000? No, because it will be calculated on the 15,000. That is what the provision says कि जब उस मंथ का सेल आप उस मंथ में डिक्लेयर कर रहे हो और वो रिटर्न लेट फाइल कर रहे हो then it will be on net basis. But you're filing for the month of April, but sales pertains to the previous month. Their net benefit you will not get. You have to pay on the gross amount. You have to pay on the 15,000 itself. That is what Rule 88B1 and 88B2 says. GST Act में है Priya, so this can come up for you to determine what is the interest calculation to be. Burden on taxpayer, yes, because burden on taxpayer is fine because the he did not file the return on a timely basis. अगर timely basis पे file होता या उसी month में declare करके late file करता तभी interest लगेगा, but he is included previous month sale in this month, so that's the reason he will get burdened. You're right. Then transfer of credit, where what it says is whatever is the CGST credit will have to get transferred as a credit, right? जो भी आप output CGST or utilizing input CGST, that has to get transferred to the central government because you are utilizing this credit for making payment of IGST. Then the government will transfer it from the central government CGST ledger to the IGST ledger internally. So that's what this provision of section 53 and section 18 is saying. Which means ITC of IGST, which is used for payment of IGST, amount equivalent to this ITC, which is so used, is transferred by the central government from CGST account to IGST account. हम इतना easily IGST credit कैसे use कर रहे हैं? Because at the back end, whatever credit you utilize for payment of CGST, the amount equivalent to ITC so used is transferred by the central government from the IGST account to the CGST account. And if the IGST credit is utilized for payment of SGST, then amount equivalent to ITC so used is transferred by the central government from the IGST account to the respective SGST account of the state government. That is how the credit system is seamlessly flowing. If we have no credit in IGST account after paying IGST liability, then what happens? Nothing happens. We will not transfer. The government will transfer. At the back end, this is what happens. यहाँ तेज चौहान मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ जब भी हम आईटीसी यूटिलाइज करते हैं सीजीएसटी का किसके लिए आईजीएसटी पेमेंट के लिए तब हम इजीली पोर्टल में कर देते हैं, लेकिन गवर्नमेंट को पीछे की तरफ जाके क्या करना पड़ेगा, गवर्नमेंट को आप कहाँ से क्रेडिट यूटिलाइज कर रहे हो वो स्टेट से बैलेंस लेके आईजीएसटी मतलब सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को देना पड़ेगा। तो आईटीएससी आईजीएसटी जो है वो एक्चुअल में क्रेडिट नहीं है, सिर्फ एक स्टेट से दूसरे स्टेट में पास ऑन करने का जरिया है। Kalpana, notes have been uploaded. I think they will share it with you shortly. You will be able to see it probably by tomorrow. So if the government transfer, then the ITC gets transferred to our CGST account. No, you have already utilized it. The effect of that is given by the government. The government from one state to the central government, they will do this at the back end. Yes, Sureka, do you have any question? So CGST cannot get set off with CGST and vice versa. Correct. CGST and SGST do not have a good handshake. They cannot do this transfer. Yes, this is when we utilize our CGST credit. करेक्ट करेक्ट, हम तो इजीली क्लिक कर देते हैं, लेकिन गवर्नमेंट को बहुत सारा काम पिछवाड़े में करना पड़ता है। आई मीन द ओके, एनी अदर क्वेश्चंस? यहाँ से प्रैक्टिकल क्वेश्चंस ऑन इंटरेस्ट वी मे गेट। यस। मीनिंग ऑफ रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव इफेक्ट, रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव मींस जो भी चेंजेस करते हैं आज उसका इफेक्ट पहले से होगा, उसे कहते हैं रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव। जैसे आज कुछ चेंजेस लेके आए थे जीएसटी लॉ में, वो आज से या लागू होना चाहिए, लेकिन इंटरेस्ट का प्रोविजंस में क्या किया उन्होंने, चेंजेस तो लेके आए 2019 में, लेकिन बोला है उसका इफेक्ट 2017 से होगा। मतलब जो भी चेंजेस है उसका इफेक्ट पहले से होगा, उसे कहते हैं रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव। ठीक है, प्रोस्पेक्टिव जो आज से ही चेंजेस होगा, और जो पैसे चेंजेस होगा उसे कहते हैं रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव। ओके, so thank you very much. It was a good class today with the workings and things, even though it was a little dry subject, but we could pick it up very well with the questions. Quiz, Nidhi, up, we'll take it offline. We'll discuss on the quiz later on. Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you in the next class.